Welcome, everyone. It's Matt, and today I've got a pretty special presentation that we're going to go through. Going to talk about Crowned Zacian and Zamazenta and how it's really going to help smaller communities be able to complete the tougher tier Dynamax and Gigantamax. This is going to be for June 28th and 29th for GoFest Global. So let's go. All right, so this is going to be, instead of like I just go through everything quickly, kind of an overview of what we're planning on doing today. This is going to be important for smaller communities and leaders, as GoFest is going to give us one of the best chances to reset all of the Gigantamax and Dynamax Pokemon and allow communities to catch up really, really quick that have kind of been left behind. Crown Shield, Zamazenta, and Zacian are going to be the best tank sponge and the strongest general attacker. And this is going to allow us to get them in normal raid battles. Yeah, we have to do a lot of extra steps afterwards, but we could get these in just normal raid battles that even smaller communities can do. And you could also remote raid into larger communities as well. And give you two really powerful Pokemon. Zamazenta is a better tank and sponge than Blissey, even with only using the one shield. And Crown Sword Zacian is just the best general attacker, period. The battle effects from both Crown Pokemon that are also with these Pokemon will help trainers during these battles even more. Now, if you only fight enough to really level them up and don't have candy, it will cost rare candy, but those are fairly easy to get still. You get them with most 5-star raids and even 3 stars. And during the Go Fest, some of the research will also give you rare candy. And this will give you a lot cheaper ways to give you both offensive and defensive boosts to your group during these battles for free, or honestly much cheaper than what you would be paying for max mushrooms. So, all in all, this is kind of something that I really wanted to get out as quick as I could so that communities could try to prepare for this and know that, hey, this is actually something that's going to be incredibly useful. And please spread the word to all the communities that you have. As I say, I just feel this is the best chance that Niantic and Scopely can give communities of all types the ability to do Dynamax and Gigantamax. They're honestly financially driven to try to give this to us because they want people playing for Dynamax and Gigantamax, as that's the way to keep players involved. As really, going to be honest, almost all of our new stuff that we're going to be able to do in Pokemon Go is going to be through Dynamax and Gigantamax, at least for the next year and a half, 2 years. With that, we are going to go with Hero of Many Battles Zacian. So this is going to be the form that you're going to be fighting in the raids during GoFest Global. It is a fairy type unit, and so it's only going to be weak to poison and steel. Zacian takes reduced damage from bug, dark, fighting, and dragon. So with poison and steel, you're going to want to load up your raid teams, obviously with poison damage and steel damage. And if you've already got some units as well, you can actually, you don't even need to fight too much other than to get the energy needed to upgrade. Zacian IV is 2188 to 2735 for both hundos for normal and weather boosted. The stats is nothing that we're going to worry about right now. They're the same between Zacian and Zamazenta. So, Crown Shield Zacian is a unique type of fairy and steel, which actually gives a great deal of very strong resistances and only 2 weaknesses. The only problem with the weaknesses is they're somewhat common with fire and ground, where you take 60% more damage. Zacian does have a massive 9 resistances with Dark Fairy, Flying Grass, Ice, Normal Poison, Psychic Rock that takes 37.5% less damage, 60.9 in Bug, and very importantly, a 75.6 reduction in Dragon. That's going to be super important for Latios and Latias. The Dynamaxes, they'll be coming around most likely next month. Also, Crowned Zacian stats 332 attack is by far the strongest Dynamax/Gigantamax that we have. Its defense is 240, which is honestly one of the best that we have. It would be higher, but Zamazenta and on top of it, Shuckle are going to actually make this number 3 for the defense, but still, considering it's very, very powerful. Its HP is just average, but that's okay. On top of this, Zacian is actually a very capable tank, let alone how powerful it is as an attacker. The only thing it doesn't have with Zamazenta is having the pre-shield during there, and I'll talk more about that with Zamazenta. Its fast moves are pretty simple and only has 2, and you're only going to be using Metal Claw. And since I'm talking to the smaller communities here as well, why do we only use 0.5 seconds for Metal Claw especially? And that's because on 5-star and 6-star battles, so your big Dynamax and your Gigantamax battles, there seems to be, and we don't know the exact formula, there seems to be that there is a kind of a very specific function that gives a minimum, and the 0.5 seconds are a little bit below the minimum, and they scale from there. So the 0.5 seconds actually fill the gauge faster than 1 second and much faster than the 1.5 second. So with that, you are always looking for your fastest attacks. It's priority to be effective or at least neutral. You do not want to be doing resisted damage, as that will slow you down. But other than that, you really focus mostly on 0.5 or 1 second. And on some fights, I only do 0.5 seconds because they attack so fast. The difference between the two are relatively small. And if you get a effective versus normal, you can actually get the fight a little faster, but we focus on the 0.5 seconds because of that. And both Zacian and Zamazenta have 0.5 second moves, which makes them incredibly strong overall. The charge moves we're not going to talk about very much, but you do need to have Behemoth Blade on Crowned Zacian, or actually on your regular Zacian, in order to upgrade it to Crowned Shield Zacian. And so you're always going to have Behemoth Blade. You're not going to have any other charge moves. You can't switch out to charge moves without going back down to the hero of many battles. So your charge moves are always going to be Behemoth Blade. And in Dynamax and Gigantamax, we really never use charge moves in the 5-star or 6-star battles. Fast moves are always the way to go. Crowned Shield Zacian is the best attacker in the game, hands down. As a tank, it is the second best in steel. Obviously, the only reason it is not number 1 is because of Zamazenta. And it's okay as a healer in the steel regards, but quite honestly, and just for the most part, you're not going to be healing with Zacian. And it's better off to do shield or guard and then attack if you're using it as a tank, or guard and attack, and then just keep on attacking. But generally, Zacian, you're just going to be doing one thing, and that's straight out attacking. Some communities may say, hey, my Zacians won't learn guard, and that's fine. They're expensive. We'll talk more about that later. But in general, best attacker. As a tank, it is very, very solid, especially against dragons. And normally as a tank, it's pretty strong. Just in general, it's a little bit above where a lot of tanks you would expect, because it has so many resistances, but it doesn't have the super resistances other than dragon. But that's still very important for the stuff that's coming down the line. All right, for Zamazenta, has the same stats as Zacian, just the hero form, not the crown form. But because it's a fighting, it has increased damage from fairy, flying, and psychic. So yes, Zacian is going to be very strong against Zamazenta. With fairy, flying, and psychic, there is an awful lot of ways to defeat Zamazenta quickly. Mewtwo, Abra, flying. We have Charizard, we have Moltres. There's a lot of good choices here. And obviously Fairy if you have Zacian. So Zamazenta, I think, is going to be the easier of the two to whittle down, even though both of them are going to be fairly easy because these are going to be regular raid battles. Zamazenta takes reduced damage from Bug, Dark, and Rock as a fighter. So really that only eliminates some of them. You're looking for the same IV, so 2188 for regular and 2735 for weather boosted. Those are going to be your hundos for each, and good luck to everyone there. So for Crowned Shield Zamazenta, you can see that its attack at 250 would be the second or third. Oh no, it's right now we have Gengar and Inteleon and Cinderace that are above Crowned Zamazenta. So there are still a few Gigantamaxes that are above Crowned Zamazenta for the attack, but in general, it's still top notch there. And obviously, the Dynamaxes are still slightly stronger. But the differences here are relatively small, especially considering how powerful of a tank this will be. So where Blissey has a massive amount of HP, the defense here really gives it a solid foundation, let alone the amount of resistances that it has as well. Zamazenta is weak to fighting, fire, and ground. That is a little bit of a weakness here because it is a fire and steel type. So Zamazenta will have a decent amount of common elements that it will be weak to with Zacian, with fire and ground. And this is going to be the only area where we will see some potential conflicts. But with the Pokemon that we think are coming down the line, that is still mitigatable. And on top of it, even with that 60%, it's still better than Blissey, and we'll show you that data a little bit later. Just in general, Zamazenta takes reduced damage from Dark, Dragon, Grass, Ice, Normal, and Steel at 37.5%, and has 3 at 60.9% with Bug, Poison, and Rock. I do expect to see a decent amount of rock Pokemon in the next 6 months to 12 months, as we don't have a great deal right now. From what I've heard, Ammonite is going to be coming out, and Zamazenta is going to absolutely make that fight a joke. Poison is something that we just don't have a lot of super resistance to as well. And with the 29 or 292, sorry, I'm so used to even so much smaller defense, 292 defense, that's really going to limit any of the damage there. And someone who has Zamazenta is going to be able to dominate the raid and help out with the rest of the community and be able to take all the damage all the time. Fast moves are exactly the same thing as Zacian, and the charge moves is Behemoth Bash this time. In order to transform Zamazenta into Crowned Shield Zamazenta, you have to have Behemoth Bash. The good news is if you find a hundo that doesn't have Behemoth Bash, or you have a hundo that doesn't have Behemoth Bash, you could just use a regular charge TM to change it to Behemoth Bash, and then that will be eligible overall. Basically, the Zamazenta, the attacker, is a little weaker compared to Zacian as a tank, but still, it is a very solid attacker in general. As I say, I was able to whittle off a few in the Dynamax and Gigantamax territory, but overall, it's still a top-tier attacker. It is a little bit weaker than Excadrill and Metagross, and we'll talk a little bit more of the damage real soon. But comparatively, with the tank, it is unbelievably strong. And there is one thing that I haven't talked about is when you unleash your Max Guard and you learn Max Guard, your Zamazenta will get a shield before the first transformation during battle. I just want to state that here. I'm going to go about why that is so important later on. But right now, that is incredibly huge. And as a healer, it's the same as Zacian. We're not going to really go into much detail there. It is just not a healer. It is still decent at healing. And if you have all the extra Stardust and candy and you want to put healing on there, you can. But in general, that's a place where you can easily say, no, I'm good. All right. So, one of the more requested things that I've had for my channel has been doing the Crown Sword Shield damage capability for steel. And steel now has a pretty large overall base. We know now that Zamazenta and Zacian basically are treated as Dynamax Pokemon. So they get their damage. Level 1 attack is 250, level 2 is 300, level 3 is 350. And with that, Steel right now doesn't have any Gigantamax, so all of these units will be doing the breakdown of 250, 300, 350. If this is your first time looking at this chart, I put 0% at level 20 with the weakest of all of that element. So this in case is steel. And then we just put the overall power. And so when Zamazenta is 49.1% stronger than Corviknight, basically every attack Zamazenta will get an extra 50% more damage off. And that includes its Dynamax capabilities as well. So for Zamazenta, it is basically on par with what we had for some of our best, if not our best attackers, Excadrill and Metagross. Both of these Pokemon had some pretty good defensive, whereas Zamazenta now just absolutely leapfrogs them. We have basically 4 types of defense now. We have they're going to die instantly. They can work, but generally will take a decent amount of damage. Blissey is in that regards, but because of its HP, it does absorb well enough. You have the tanks where they're very powerful because of their resistances, and that was Excadrill and Metagross. And then you have Zamazenta that basically has massive defense, good enough HP, and on top of it has a lot of resistances on top. So from a tanking standpoint, if you're thinking anything about steel, Zamazenta is going to be the Pokemon that you're looking for. And then Zacian goes Hold My Beer. It is a whole 43% stronger than Metagross at level 20 and up to 60% stronger at level 50, and kind of blows this analysis out of the water. Zacian is so strong that quite frankly, at level 50, almost does 1.4 times the amount, 2.4 times the amount of damage that Corviknight can do. And even with Metagross, it does 50% more damage. So Zacian is kind of broken for the overall attack, especially if they're weak to steel. Zacian and Zamazenta will just absolutely dominate the battlefield. But Zamazenta, as I say, and Zacian just are so useful because Metagross was one of the strongest Pokemon overall, and it had 2 relatively unique elements. And Zacian is just a whole 2 steps ahead. So even if they're not optimal, as long as they're not resistant to steel, Zacian will still be top tier of a lot of the damage overall from here on out. And for trainers that do visit my videos very often, yes, I will be putting Zacian on every damage capability from here on out. Adventure effects is something that I haven't talked about, and this is kind of an additional benefit / even more of the secret sauce to the Crowned Sword and Shield Zamazenta and Zacian. Zamazenta boosts the defense of all battlers and raids in max battles, and Zacian boosts the attack of all battlers in raids and max battles. We don't know the exact amount, and we still, because it's not fully released, I haven't been able to play test it, and I just really haven't been able to find any information there. I have a Zamazenta right now. It is a hundo. It is, I have done a lot of Dynamax battles with it, and let me tell you, this is some next level stuff. These boosts, if it is for all battlers, then you only need 1 trainer for each to cast them, and you can have them casted. If they are for all of your battlers, and once again, I don't exactly know right now, the optimal usage would be your tank and we'll talk about that a little bit later. To go with Zamazenta, and the other three should use Zacian offensive boost. At the very least, you should be using one of these two boosts at all times. The only negative that I have is that you'll be able to defeat the Dynamax and Gmax with this, and you won't be able to use the Kyurem ability to catch them easily. They're still pretty catchable, but it is usually worth the 200 coins to guarantee you catch at least one, just so that you have it. It really does hurt me to say it. I try to be as free to play as I can. But for GoFest Global, especially for this year, I am going to advocate for some spending, which kind of shows how important this is overall, in my humble opinion. All right, so the shield / max guard, and why I think it's more important, and there is some disagreement within community about this. So for everybody, if you level up your max guard, you will have if it's at level 1, you'll create a 20 HP shield, level 2 at 40 HP, and level 3 at 60 HP. You could have up to 3 shields at a time. So at level 1, that gives you a max 60 HP, and level 3, that gives you 180 HP. It is very important for Zamazenta to have the max guard leveled up as much as possible, because Zamazenta starts off every battle for Dynamax and Gigantamax with 1 shield as well. But shields have a more important purpose than just giving you temporary HP. And the shields will always take the first damage before your normal HP. So even with Shuckle with 10 HP is a powerhouse, because if you give it 3 shields, that's 180 HP in general. Now, there's a lot of simple calculations that you could do where you go, hey, Blissey is the strongest because it could just take 7 hits before it has to do anything, yada, yada, yada. There's one thing that math is really not focusing on, and that shields also give a much larger chance of a single attack focused on your tank or the person that has the shield versus an area attack. And for communities that have a bunch of level 40, level 50 Dynamax and Gigantamax, you don't really need to have tanks, because Blissey will be able to absorb all of that damage, yada, yada, yada. But for most of the communities out there, and I'm going to say 80, maybe 90% of the communities, and I've done a little bit of traveling, and actually I've had some communities visit my community, and we've had a lot of discussions. And a lot of the communities are really struggling because their trainers just don't have the level 40 optimal Pokemon all the time. And when you can try to make a single attack focus on you, especially if you are one of the more powerful trainers in your community, you can help the rest of your community fight and get stronger as well, which then helps you farther down the line by throwing out these shields. As you get a single attack there, one, it is usually not focusing on your HP, especially with Zamazenta. Zamazenta, especially with all the reduced damage that you see down there, Zamazenta will be able to take those attacks. But on top of it, that means the other 3 trainers basically got a free pass, and as long as you can get them to the second and third transformations, and for some communities, they go, well, we only need 1. Yes, that's because you guys are very strong. But for most communities, 2 and 3, that will then, if most of the trainers are still alive then and attacking, that is getting you to the point where, yes, you will be able to start defeating them. And with that, that is a huge advantage. But mad, healing with Blissey, yeah, but it's much easier to implement shields than healing, because in order to heal, you have to have all the trainers switch to their guarding Pokemon, which usually aren't the strongest attackers. And so with that math, you're then not doing as much damage in general either. And for Zamazenta especially, or if you're tanking with Zacian, where that's just an absolute beast of attacker, you're just pumping out so much more damage that it's still the more optimal and the best play route, especially for communities. So it's less communication. You still need to do a little bit of communication because you want to make sure that one person is tanking within each of your subgroups, as that will make life easier. But two, you generally are more effective in that regards. So yes, you will be looking at your screen a bit more, and we're going to talk about dodging. It's a little bit busted right now. Occasionally it works, occasionally it doesn't. And sometimes the dodging will limit the kind of like they do a little bit of a bonus damage for the single attack. But depending on elements and overall power, it is the most optimal strategy when you put most of the variables in play. Now, yes, there are a couple of variables that I'm moving around, but in general, from my own experience leading massive groups of 200 or more trainers, and most of them are all over in the levels, this definitely helps and gets us through very consistently, as sometimes we have up to 12 groups of 20. So how to make a tank work in a group. So you want to have one tank and 3 more focus attackers. If you look on the picture to the left, I have tank written above one of the 3 Charizards, and then there's an Italian in there too. But the Charizard here is acting as a tank because see those 3 lines? Those 3 lines are signifying when you are being singled out for a single attack. Those single attacks can be dodged because when you have those 3 lines up there, and there will be a comment saying focused attack to you is, up or whatever. You could swipe either to the left or to the right. I do have some battles that will show you how to do the dodging as well if you want to look at those. They're within the same. But in general, with that dodge, it will be basically that single attack. It will be on average the same power as the area attack, but only focused on the one unit or one Pokemon or trainer, depending on, how you think about the HP in general. So, and with those focus attack, the 3 lines, you just swipe left or right. And after that, everyone is still attacking, boosting up the power. And what you've had is the ability to really take the damage and quarter it and just focus it on you. If you're about to die as a tank, that's okay. At that point, you're just, even if you are taken out, you've basically saved the other 3 trainers to go along and still fight for you. Why is Zamazenta, and why is this so important? Is because Zamazenta starts off with a shield, and this will allow you to make it to the first transition better. It's not a guarantee that it will only use the single attack on the tank, but it's a much higher chance. Without shields being up, we usually see, I'd say, about 75 to 80% area attacks with 20% to 25% single attacks. When you do have a shield up, it almost reverses. We're looking at around 60 to 70% single attacks versus 20 to 30% area attacks. I don't really have super solid stats data here. There's just way too many attacks, but in general, that's kind of roughly what the feeling that I have for that. It might even be closer to 40-60, where 60% is the single, but that itself really helps the community. And this is the first time that we will have any type of shields up before the first transformation. And with that first transformation is generally when a lot of trainers faint and really just only can help with cheering. And trust me, cheering is very important. Please cheer. Don't exit out. Cheering helps the rest of the group go. But if you could get most of your trainers to the first transformation, the odds of winning go from 0% to 50% right there. So even just that That is a very powerful thing. All right. Some of my assumptions. I have like a third of the community only has level 40 plus Pokemon when they enter the fight. And I'm going to be honest, I think that's a little too high. But I do think that if you really kind of ask, you could probably get easily a third of your community to get a level 40 Zamazenta and a level 40 Zacian. And if your community is 8 to 12 strong, that's still going to be enough to be able to get through most of the overall content that we will be seeing with Gigantamax. With Dmax, you only need to have 4 trainers and with the 5 stars, and that will still help you a lot with the 5 stars, as I still know a few communities that struggle even with the 5 stars. A lot of other calculations that I've seen assume that the entire community it has level 40 Pokemon and above. And honestly, most communities do not have. And if your group or community does have that, you are a very strong community, and congratulations. I also use just the damage formula, which is stated here. So when I mean floor, every single damage is going to do at least 1. So the floor means that whole thing within the parentheses can't be 0. One of the reasons why they have a floor is an example is slacking. Slacking actually has like negatives because of how little it does, or etc. So it's just half times the power. The power is the attack power. So here, like for the Dynamax, is 250, 300, 350. And for Gigantamax, 350, 400, 450. Then it's multiplied by the attack of the Pokemon attacking divided by the defense of the Pokemon defended times same type of attack bonus. So Zacian attacking with steel gets 1.2 or 20% more damage than if it was attacking with ice, because the attack and the unit don't have the same typings. And then you multiply that by the effectiveness. And that's how you get the damage in general. And for some of the defense that I'm going to show, instead of focusing on attack, I just remove everything around for defense, and I ignore the 1. Assuming that you could direct the behavior of Pokemon shields, and as I say, I see 50% more. We expect to see between 60 to 70% single attacks if you're using shields. That itself is really helpful because you're really quartering the damage dealt. And everything that I'm going to be showing from here on out is a 15, 15, 15 IV. The difference between 10 and 15 IV is less than 4%, but it's also very consistent throughout all Pokemon just in general. So this is just a simplicity of calculations, and so you guys' eyes don't bleed with me making fancy charts. So we're going to take damage taken by Blissey and what Zamazenta would have taken damage. And I'm going to be taking it for 2 of the last 3. My Cinderace data is just kind of wonky because I was at GoFest New York City and I was doing 100 or 1,000 plus trainer battles, and those data is just way out of whack. Inteleon is probably Blissey's strongest tanking just in general. It was mostly designed for Blissey because it had relatively weak attacks, and it's the Shadow Ball fit right into its strongest. And comparatively, Zamazenta doesn't have any strengths or weaknesses against Inteleon. And with that, you could see that basically we're going to divide it there. You could take 6 hits with Surf, maybe it's 7, but it's right on the edge before Blissey would faint. And with Zamazenta, assuming a max guard level 3, it has 233. It would take 5 to 6 before it faints for both Surf and Water Pulse. That higher defense, even with it, with the same, has the exact same overall damage being taken. And you can see that Shadow Ball Blissey out-tanks Zamazenta because resistances, honestly, are really, really key. But even so, Zamazenta really stood up to what Blissey did overall. For Rillaboom, though, on the other hand, Blissey was still able to take 5 to 6 damage overall. Zamazenta, depending, and this is with just one max guard, which it comes with automatically at level 3 for 60 HP, could take twice as many hits with Grass Knot and Energy Ball as what Blissey could do. That's based off of the HP as well. It's taking a third of the damage. And with Earth Power, it is such a massive difference that honestly, if Zamazenta was being attacked by Rillaboom's Earth Power consistently, it would take 3 attacks for it to even take away 1 shield. And for most battles, you are only seeing 2 at most attacks, especially if you're using the 0.5 seconds. So that is just the absolute power that Zamazenta has going to have over Blissey in general. And Blissey requires everybody to have a Blissey or a strong Pokemon in general, where Zamazenta is going to help focus some of those attacks only onto Zamazenta on top of that for everyone. And with that, even if most people only have 1 attack and then the other 2 are literally sacrificial lambs per se, you could still get trainers to the 2nd or 3rd transformation with that. And any attack is a good attack with the Dynamax form. So damage dealt by Blissey versus Zamazenta. And this is going to kind of show that on top of it, for Zamazenta being a better damage receiver or sponge in general, and I kind of showed Blissey at her best and Zamazenta as his best, that for its weakest, which is fire, water, and electric, where Zamazenta has some issues with steel versus Blissey's normal, that Zamazenta still does 15 to 21% stronger damage overall, let alone for when it's when they're perfectly equal footing, which is between 80 to 120%. And stuff like rock, where we're talking about every attack is equivalent to 4 to 6 Blissey attacks, and same with Ghost. So we are just kind of going here with how much power. The difference between rock and Ghost is normal just does very little damage to Ghost. So even, they're still roughly the same, but they're based a little bit different between Blissey and Zamazenta. So I put them both there instead of simplifying the calculations, just trying to give you guys the best information I can. And with Ice Fairy, we're still talking 2 to 1 versus 3 to 1, or over 3 to 1. So I know people are like, well, I have to heal, then I could still do some damage. Zamazenta just does massive amount of damage as well. And if you're using Zacian, these numbers are just bonkers different. And I was tempted to as well. And honestly, at level 40 here, you could just see the differences. And also remember, the difference between level 20 and level 40 for everyone is about 31.5%. So if you can get level 20, or if they're level 30 trainers, it's only 9% difference than what you normally are attacking at level 40. If you could get trainers going into the 1st or 2nd transformation round, you are doing massive amount more damage than you were before. And that is the key to the Dynamax and Gigantamax overall. All right, now we're going to kind of just try to max out our candy. Mega units, depending on what level, give you more candy. Saturday, Zamazenta is supposed to be featured. It doesn't mean it's going to be the only one, but it should be on a 2 to 1 or 3 to 1 ratio compared to Zacian, and it will switch. So I highly suggest Saturday that you focus on fighting type, and it's got to be fighting type because Zamazenta, you'll be going against Zamazenta. Actually, might be able to go through both, but we're going to just put Zamazenta here. Right now, at the very least, with the fighting, you have Heracross, Blaziken, Metachan, Lopunny, Lucario, and Galad. I'm probably going to be using my Blaziken or Lucario. Those are my only level 3s that I still have, because I'm still being lazy about doing the transformations once a week. Um, but with that, you get a level 1, you get 1 bonus candy, which is actually very important just in general. 2, you get 1 bonus catch candy, and that's with between 1 and more than 1 and 7 times 10% chance of an XL drop, and there's always 3 chances of an XL drop and 50% EXP. And then level 3, which is 30 times mega or more, you get 2 bonus catch candy, 25% chance of additional 3 drops of XL candy, and 100 EXP. They add up, especially if you're going to be doing more combat than general. A lot more raids, especially during like Go Fest. For Zacian Mega units, Sunday, it's Psychic, Slowbro, Alakazam, Medicham, Glad, and Gardevoir. I'll probably be using Alakazam or Metachan on Sunday, but I'll be honest, I'm not even sure if they're level 3 yet. And it's the same exact idea here. Zacian will be more out there. I didn't do, and I should have done the testing to see if I could have gotten Steel. But right now, these are the ones guaranteed for each. Overall battle plan, and actually, I'm going to go back. Galad is used for both. So if you have a Galad, you can actually do both candies as well. So the overall battle plan for Global Go Fest. Saturday, Zamazenta will be featured for raids. And as I say, it'll just be more likely you'll still see Zacian out there. This is going to be one of the few times that I highly suggest that you're buying the ticket. The ticket will give you Volcanion. You'll get a rotation of super special Pokemon every hour with Incense. And those are something that you're going to not be able to get for most trainers out in the wild. Or if you can, there will only be one in your area. And with that, you'll be able to get chances every hour on a 4-hour rotation. So you'll get 2 chances each day. You get up to 9 free raid passes. And this is going to be one of the few times that I am going to be raiding my butt off for all the candies. And you'll receive special research for either Sword or Shield. Sword will give you Zacian. Shield will give you Zamazenta. And if you went to one of the city special events like I did, you can get a second of these quests for during the Go Fest. So I can guarantee myself a Zacian and a Zamazenta. And why is that important? Because during the ticketed quest, you choose Sword, Zacian, Shield, Zamazenta. And completing that quest, actually about 2/3 of the way through that quest, you'll gain about 1,000. You'll gain 1,000 of this energy, either Zacian or Zamazenta, which then allow you to transform. And so really then you only need to worry about the other transformation if you got that ticket. And if you got the ticket and went to as I say, a in-person city quest, Osaka, Paris, or New York City, then you could get both of them. Each battle during Global Go Fest should give you 100 energy for each victory of the Pokemon that you fight. So if you defeat Zacian, you should get 100 of the sword energy, and Zamazenta 100 of the shield energy. So that means 10 wins for each of Pokemon will allow you to transform one of them into these absolute monsters. If you need to switch it back to normal form, they said it will cost you no energy to go back again. I haven't tried yet because I don't dare them until I have more energy to burn, just in case I do need that energy. But I'm just stating what they've told. I haven't tested it yet, and I'm a little afraid to, at least until Global Fest. I've told you all the positives about the crown costs. Here is the one major negative. Upgrading skills and levels for these Pokemon are pretty expensive. So I have it stated here looking at the chart to the bottom left. Level 20 to 40, which I suggest all trainers do, it costs 225k Stardust and 248 candy in general. And if you use the megas, especially if you have a level 3 Mega Galad, that the candy shouldn't be all that hard. Especially with the ticket, you should be able to get that candy in general. Level 40 to 50 costs 250k Stardust and 296 XL candy. That's really expensive. And my suggestion for most trainers is to stop at level 40, at least until you've finished your max attack and max guard. Fully upgrading your max attack is going to cost 150k Stardust and 130 candy and 55 XL. And for max guard, it's 175k, and along with max spirit, 210 candy and 55 XL. For Zacian, I highly suggest you max out attack first, because you may be a little short on your XL candy. 110 total spend before your max attack and guard is pretty high, and I understand that not all trainers are going to get there. And for Zamazenta, I highly suggest you do max guard, then you focus on your max attack. And in general, my suggestion is you should have, for Zamazenta, you need to unlock your max guard. And if you are short on Stardust, go Star Piece, go Ham during Go Fest. You should be able to get a decent amount. For the 2, you're talking about 1.1 million Stardust. That is oof. And that is just going to level 40 and max attack and max guard, fully upgraded for each Zamazenta and Zacian. If your community is really, really low, make sure that 2 of them have a Zamazenta, the other 6, so 1 to 3 ratio of Zamazentas and Zacians, level to 40, and with their respective max attack or max guard maxed out at the very least. And if you're going through a Zacian for level 40 and max attack, that's 375k Stardust and 378 candy and 55 XLs. And for Zamazenta, that's 400k Stardust, a little bit more candy, which is 458 candy and 55 XLs. That's what you're really looking for the overall in general. That is going to maximize cost versus power. If you have more XLs, I would then focus going from level 40 to 50 along with the Stardust, but it's not really that necessary. I tend to stick with mostly level 40. My Zamazenta and Zacian, so are level 50. That's because I expect to use them so much, and it's well worth the investment. First of all, thank you for going through all this. If you're still here in the conclusion point, Zamazenta and Zacian are just overpowered. These are the most overpowered units that we have seen for Dynamax and Gigantamax. And, we just got let loose that some really powerful Pokemon, and they're most likely going to be released for Dynamax and Gmax only, are coming in 2026. So it's going to be really important to be able to do a lot of these in order to get the new cool stuff coming down the line. Zamazenta and Zacian can be obtained with small communities, and if you're really, you could go Pokegenie, and you could try to get a little bit on Friday and use remote raids, and you could do all that stuff, especially if you're out here in North America or South America. These will allow all these communities to complete the newest content. And the adventure effects will boost strength even more, especially if you use them strategically. This is a one-time event for all these communities to catch up. And I really just wanted to make a short video, but I really, really, really wanted to make a passion plea to try to get as many communities to get to where they are. And even if it wasn't a strategic decision, I've actually got to give a huge hand to Niantic and Scopely to get this out during Global Go Fest. And I know the strategic decision was, hey, they're going to spend a lot of money for this. Honestly, this is going to allow a lot more communities to succeed for Gigantamax especially. And it's going to be incredibly important. And if I had to make trainers choose, Zacian is going to be the right choice. Zamazenta has some really cool things that I think you're going to really enjoy. But Zacian, just having more attack is just going to be better overall. And with that, that is the end of my video. If you enjoyed this video, comment down below and please subscribe. That really helps my channel. I also have a Twitch, twitch.tv/MattGuru. I also have a Discord, which is in my community. You can find it there. You can join. I do have a lot of security on it. You will need to be approved. You can whisper to me, or if I know who you are because of some of the comments, I will get you in instantly. Then you just have to click on to the Pokemon Go button to see all the specialized Pokemon Go. Try to do that so my Discord isn't just a huge mess to everybody that's in there. Also, if you are willing to help support and be part of my YouTube community, that would be much appreciated. You'll get your name at the end here. And on top of that, I use a lot of your feedback more to try to focus on stuff that you're interested in to go into deeper dives like this. I know that a lot of people commented they love my deeper dives. I will still be doing some short form videos as well and my battles. But more importantly, I kind of just would like to say good luck to all the community out there. I really, really, really hope to see a lot of Shield, Zamazenta, and Crowns and Sword Zacians when I do some random Gmax battles in the future, as I try to kind of do that to gauge how communities are doing. But with that, as always, I will try and do better next time. Good luck, and most importantly, have fun at GoFest Global, everyone. Bye.